Good morning. It's Friday morning. It's Scott Cullen here, the editor-in-chief of the Cannata Report. And along with me this morning is Frank Cannata, our founder. He's been traveling a lot lately to various dealer group meetings. The last meeting he was at was SDG. I understand you had a good time at that, Frank?
Yes, we did. Carol and I were just so pleased with the whole meeting from a social standpoint. You know, the meetings are all pretty much, as you know, are all pretty much the same in what we get done. But this was, as much as I liked the American Co-op meeting, and I thought those people, particularly Tim Reniger, who was the host for that one, did a great job. Phil Hauser is the president of SDG, and I have to tell you, he took it over the top. He and his wife, his lovely wife Teresa, opened their homes to us. That kind of set a very high bar for anybody else to come even close to. But it also made us all start talking to each other, discussing some of the things that that dealers have most on their mind, and it was a perfect setting. So the next morning we had the panel. Sitting on the panel in this particular case, we had Oscar Sanchez, Joe Serra, we had Mike Maruzic, Sharp, we had Sam Marico, Konica Minolta, we had Larry White, Toshiba. We had invited Jim Caridi, but I had a conflict, and he sent a very able replacement, John Stewart. We had Mike Petrunti from Xerox, so I haven't seen Mike in a while, and Tammy Beach from HP. And Tammy and I have been on the phone a lot and emailing a lot since the Amplify program came on, and it was great to see her. At any rate, one of the things that I've learned, that if you want to have a successful panel at these dealer meetings, you got to ask the dealers questions, not yours. And I insisted in both cases, both with American Co-op and SDG. And the thing that surprised, and it shouldn't have, but it did, I looked at the questions from American Co-op and then the ones from SDG. They were virtually the same. Very much concerned with back orders, very much with concern with declining margins, very much worried about what am I going to be selling 5 years from now, and even wording it the same way. What am I selling 5 years from now? What am I selling 10 years from now? What's your recommendation for diversity? Why can't you, or not why, it wasn't confrontational. That why it sounds confrontational. They ask, isn't it, and they asked it the right way. It would be a big help to us if you could somehow or other arrange some kind of training to help us with recruiting, because that's a serious problem for us. And both organizations felt the same way. They could use some help in that area, and they were looking for some additional help. On the back orders, it was the same thing. Can't you give us more information? I can tell my salespeople, if you got a customer that we can move to that particular product, there's lots of them, et cetera, et cetera. And the executives answered them very, very direct. I mean, nobody was dancing. And what it all boiled down to it is there's so much that they don't know. And when they get information, there's a tendency for it to change. And they're going through great expense, even getting to the point where at one point, there wasn't enough trucks to ship all the product that was coming in at one of the ports, and let's say Long Beach, California. And you got to get a lot of that product across the country. There wasn't enough trucks. They've hired their own drivers and rented the vehicles, which you can do. So, you know, this was all part and parcel of the discussion. Uh, and I have to say that, you know, they gave me the questions and I suggested 90 minutes. More from a standpoint of doing the the questions, their questions for 60 to 70 minutes and then 20 minutes for Q&A. They made it for 2 hours. So we went at it in terms of responding to the questions, because in many cases, what would happen, and I haven't seen that happen in a long time. Let's say I asked Tammy Beach from HP a question, and Tammy got through. One of them would put up their hand and say, I'd like to add something to that. I said, please. And it was great. And it wasn't they were, saying, I have a different answer. There was another element that they thought should have been brought into the response. So it was great. Everybody was into wanting to do more and give more. And the remarks afterwards from the participants, but the dealers was extremely generous. They thought the answer was spot on. I get the award for moderator of the year, And I said, guys, all I did was ask the questions. But overall, there was a sentiment there, a feeling there that we're going through a tough time. We trust you to help us. And I just love the way all the executives responded. I think it would, and I asked many dealers, because that night, the same night that we did the panel, we had dinner, we had a sit down, and it was great. We sat down and we talked to quite a few dealers, and they all said the same thing. They loved it. They felt that they were getting the truth. There was a degree of sincerity that they perceived, which they felt they never had seen before. And it's my experience whenever we've done panels, they're answering the question the best way they can. There comes a time sometimes that occasionally when there is a question they can't answer honestly. It's political suicide, and they have to be careful for themselves and for their own careers. And I don't like to put people on the spot anyway, but that aside, their responses were spot on. I love the way Tammy Beach from HP answered the question. There were 2 questions about Amplify. She nailed them both. I like Tammy. I've known her a while, and she's a great person. And she just kind of responded in a way that I think she should have. And she was very clear in terms of understanding all the ramifications of the Amplify program. And she pointed out some things that the program has that was my understanding it did not have. So I said to the audience, I said, hey, I learned something too. So she did a great job in terms of addressing the concerns about Amplify.